Taurin Clarke is a freelance illustrator based in Brooklyn, New York. He has been working as a comic book cover artist and editorial illustrator since 2020. A lifelong comics fan, Taurin is one of the most prolific cover artists working today. He has provided many covers for several publishers including DC and Marvel Comics, Dark Horse, Image, Skybound, and Boom Studios, as well as illustration work for brands such as Coca-Cola and Sideshow Collectibles. Join us today as we sit down with our very special guest, Taurin Clarke, for a roundtable conversation covering his early beginnings, career as a professional artist, and what can happen when you don't give up on your dreams. Welcome everybody to a special episode of Painted in Color. Today we have a special guest. His name is Taurin Clarke. Taurin is one of the hottest and most prolific comic book artists working today for publishers like DC and Marvel Comics. He's also worked with publishers such as Disney, Marvel Studios, Warner Brothers, Dark Horse, and he's doing stuff for Boom Studios on their various Power Rangers and Ninja Turtles series. So he's got an instantly recognizable style that makes the characters that he creates leap off of the page. And I'm super excited. I've been wanting to speak with him since we started this podcast, and I'm so happy to have you here today.
Oh, I'm happy to be here, man. Thank you for the intro. I was like still waiting for more praise. I was like, hey, give me more.
It's like, yes.
I'm just absorbing it. Yeah. Got me hyped. Yeah.
It's like you left out some stuff.
Yeah, I think there's more here. Give me more. No, Eric, thank you for having me. I've been a fan since I don't even know how long. So it's nice to actually get to chat with you in this capacity. It's been years since we actually met in person. So this is kind of a nice little catch up.
That's right. So we actually met in Harlem in 2020, January of 2020. I had been following your work on Instagram for a while before that, and we had like corresponded every once in a while, and I was just like, oh my God, this stuff is dope. Like, whatever, like, how are you? Like, what are you doing? Like, oh my God. And I think I messaged you and said, hey, I'm going to be at this convention. Are you, like, how far are you away? And I didn't know if you were going to be able to make it. And you popped up in front of my table, and I'm like, oh my God.
Right. I'm in my mind. I remember it as like I had met you there, but no, you're right. We had been talking for a while, and yeah, like I think I was excited to come meet you and a few other guys, but it was, for me, it was going from Brooklyn to Harlem was like, that's a trek. But I was like, all right, gotta meet the homies, gotta be social and leave Brooklyn. So that was worth it. Definitely worth it.
Yeah, that was super fun. But like things really took off for you soon after that.
Yeah.
But we'll get into that. But I wanted to start off with give us the Superman origin story. Like let's tell us about yourself. Like, are you self-taught, or did you go to school for this? Or
oh man, I went to school for it. I was one of those gifted kids in the elementary school and that sort of a thing. And I look back now realizing that like art was always something that I was interested in. Earlier today, I had a conversation with someone in regards to what was the first thing you drew? When did you know that you wanted to be an artist? And I very much remember 1983 coming home from seeing Return of the Jedi, and my mom buying me a book of Ralph McQuarrie's set designs and matte paintings and like all the designs for the ships. And the first thing I did was just draw. I was 3 years old. I was drawing TIE fighters. I still have the art here. And from then on, it was like a daily thing.
Your mom bought you a book of Ralph McQuarrie's art when you were 3 years old?
Yeah, and my parents were teachers. They like
That's
I realized I was a little bit advanced. Like, I was definitely reading at 3. Like, I was reading and writing at 3. My parents, like, it was learning was something that was made to be fun. It wasn't a chore. It wasn't something that was, this is work. It was this is a part of the process. This is what we do. We read, we learn, we watch, we observe, we absorb, and we let that knowledge out into the world. We express ourselves. So, like, my mom and my dad were in the comic books, and they would buy me. My dad was in the Marvel. He liked the Thor and Silver Surfer and that sort of a thing. And my mom was into DC, and she liked more visually different books. So she liked very stylized, very like Bill Sienkiewicz. Like, that was like her kind of a thing. So she bought me the Dune comic book from Marvel, and that was kind of where the Muad'Dib thing started with the Instagram handle. But it was, those early years, I would say from like 82 to 87 were fundamental for me because I was bombarded with so much pop culture and so much art. Like, that's all I wanted to do. Even if I was watching Transformers on TV, I would still go and I would draw from the books. They used to have Marvel put out this book called the Marvel Handbook to the Transformers or something, and it was like this thick booklet of all the figures. And I would take my tracing paper and I would just trace over them and just learn to draw. And then it became doing that to like Fantastic Four comic books with John Byrne's one. And I think Fantastic Four 288 was my first issue, and it was like I wanted to draw. Like, I wanted to know more, and that was 84. So from like 3 to 4 years old, I'm just like, gimme, let me draw. Like, that was just, I could create these worlds, and I wanted to know more about it. Like, it's all I've ever wanted to do. You know what I mean?
So there was no way you were not going to do this. One way or another, fate was going to put you exactly where you are.
What's funny is that you say that, but there's always those detours,
Yeah.
So we'll fast forward a little bit. When I went to PS11 in Brooklyn. It was kind of a fancier public school. My buddy, oh my God, I'm drawing oh man, my brain. Malcolm Barrett, Jesus Christ, my brain. My friend Malcolm Barrett went there, famous actor. He's in tons of stuff. I wish I could promote something that he's in right now, but he's literally in everything. He was in the Preacher TV show that they had done, a couple other things. But anyway, it was like kind of a school for creative kids. And from there, I've gotten to like the art classes, and my parents saw that it was something that was a passion for me. So I ended up going to junior high school for art, and I had a specific art class, and my art teacher had put me in this competition I didn't know about. It was the Brooklyn Award for Creative Youth or something like that, and basically I had won one of like 3 spots to have my work hanging out in the Brooklyn Museum of Art. So I was like 14 with my stuff hanging in the museum, and I'd won, I think, 4-year scholarship to painting classes for adults at Pratt. So when I was like in high school, junior high school, I was taking these college courses for painting on top of like my regular school. And then I went to art and design, which is 2 steps back. When I was 13, shortly after I got that award, we went to our first Comic-Con, my dad and I, and I really wanted to know about comics. I really wanted to know what this world was about, and I wanted to understand the intricacies and how to get my foot in the door. I'm 13, but I'm like, this is what I want to do. This is all I want. Like, I don't care about anything else. This is what I want. And so we show up, and we're like the only 2 Black guys there. And honestly, everyone treated us like crap. Like, no one had any time for us. None of the creators that were hot at the time were interested in having a conversation. I was just another kid in the lines that was like, come on, hurry up. But on the way out, because my dad saw that I was getting upset, we beeline for the door, and we see these 3 guys in business suits with this huge banner, and they're like, they look like, I don't know, like fashion models or something. They just look sharper than everyone else there. And it's Dwayne McDuffie, Dennis Cohen, and Derek Diggle Dingle from Milestone. And this was right before Milestone had come out. So maybe this
is 93, 94,
yeah,
92, something like that.
Something like that. I'm trying to remember the exact timeline, but I know that Wildcats had just come out, so it was like just on the cup. I don't think that the books had come out yet, but they'd been doing like a hell of a promo tour. Like they had the biggest banner out there. They had this huge table, and honestly, there weren't that many people over there. This was pre New York Comic Con. This was like the Big Apple Con or whatever it was called.
Okay.
And so we talked to these guys, and they sat and they talked with us for about like an hour and a half.
Wow.
Like the amount of time that I spent walking and waiting in line to go to these vendors and these other artists and creators who was like, hey, whatever, kid, versus these guys sitting with me and my dad and answering all these crazy questions. Like my dad's like, well, who owns what? And, the publishing side of it. He's asking all these questions. And I'm like, who's going to draw it? What are that? So they really took the time out to answer these questions. And casually, Dennis Cohen mentions that he went to art school in New York, high school of art and design, and if I was interested, I should check it out. Casually. I think I did my whole portfolio by the end of that night.
Wow.
And by the fall, I was in. And so, yeah, I spent 4 years in the high school of art and design, and I loved it. And while I was still doing the classes at Pratt and doing all this other stuff, art was kind of my life. Then I got a really tough portfolio review that kind of like kicked me in the butt a little bit, made me doubt myself. I ended up graduating high school and went to the college of, I guess it's New York City College of Technology now. This used to be called City Tech back in the day. And it was not a good experience. It wasn't an art school, but it had an illustration and advertising program. And I was so rudderless, like I had no real direction because I didn't know if comics was going to be profitable. Like people were telling me, you need to get a real job. You need to focus on, X, Y, and Z. Learn some math. Numbers are profitable and make some money with numbers. Do something like that. I'm not interested in these other things. But the people, as you do when you're young, I ended up going to the school, being in their advertising program, and not learning anything about art. And the art program there at the time was so backwards. And this was like 99. I remember it being in typography 101. And my professor was 478 years old. And he's got us cutting out pieces of cardboard and construction paper and kerning our own letters by hand. Like literally I'm just doing arts and crafts at this point. And I'm like, there's a thing called Photoshop that just came out a couple of years ago. Should we be learning that? He's like, no, it's a fad. Real typographers kern by hand. I'm like, this is what am I doing here? So I dropped out. And that kind of was the end of that. Like I wasn't getting anything from that. Ended up working at a summer job that I ended up staying at for a very long time. Worked my way up to the corporate side of things. Stayed for about 24 years. Was an IT project manager, professional, etc. You get the salary, the day job, the desk job, 9 to 5. It looked great on paper. I was miserable. I absolutely hated it. I don't think it wasn't until I left that I really realized how absolutely depressed and miserable I was there. But even 2 steps back, in 2011, sorry that this story is all over the place. In 2011, my dad passed away. And that was kind of the big catalyst because I hadn't drawn for 10 years. Like once I dropped out of school, it was like, what's the point of doing any of this? Like I would doodle every now and then, but it wasn't like I would sit and paint and give it my time. I didn't know how to. I knew what I wanted, but I wasn't sure how to get it, and I wasn't sure the pathway to learn what I needed to learn. So when Dad passed, he was, the other biggest advocate outside of my mom for my art. Like the one thing I can say, my parents always supported me in this. They were always like, do your art, do what makes you happy. Just make sure you can feed yourself, but do what makes you happy. So when Dad passed, I decided I'm just gonna go for it and just give it a whirl. This was 2011, and I was doing my little drawings, and I joined Instagram and would do my little posts every day, my little scribbles, and people started to react to them. And they weren't very good. You know, I hadn't done anything in a long time, and it was more of almost like a diary of my own progress. It wasn't really for anyone else, but people seemed to like it. And I guess I came up over time. I came up with like you were saying, a very visually distinct style. Because also in 2011, I ended up getting shingles in my right eye, and it affected my vision to the point where I was like 75% blind in one eye. So I had to relearn how to draw from scratch. I had to relearn how to see and process and interpret from brain to hand, from eye to brain to hand. And honestly, it made me a better artist than I think I would have ever been otherwise. It's you take these breaks, and I don't know if you guys have ever done this where you've taken a break from your work and you just walk away. Someone once told me that even when you do that, you're still growing as an artist because you're absorbing influences and new things, and it's still becoming a part of you. Even if you're not physically practicing, you're still changing aesthetics, you're still growing as an artist. And that was very much the case, because what I did prior to that versus what I did in 2011 on, night and day. You know, I definitely leaned more to illustrative stuff and less comic booky, and it kind of went from there. I would say 2016, I started taking art classes at SBA to really start to hone my skills, and that worked out pretty well. By 2018, I was getting noticed by artists who I considered like my heroes or what have you, and we would chat every now and then, like Eric, and then it would be maybe 3 years later or 2 years later, in 2020, Marvel reached out to me after I was furloughed from my day job when the pandemic hit in March. I would say May 2020, right after, Marvel hit me up for my first cover. And they asked me what I wanted to do, and they asked me if I had a portfolio, and I didn't. Well, I did. I didn't have like a specific one, so I just took my strongest pieces and I sent it to them, and they were like, "Holy shit! Okay, normally we ask you guys to do like a test run or whatever, but I don't think we need to do that. We're just gonna throw you in the deep end of the pool." And they threw me into the deep end of the pool, and I did this variant for Captain Marvel 23, 22.
I love that piece. That was like right out of the gate.
Yeah, that was like my dude. It was do or die. It's like either I do this well, or I absolutely, I don't know if I can curse, I absolutely fuck up my chances to be, to do what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So this is like the NBA scouts at the door. What do you do?
Yeah.
So I had 28 panic attacks. I overthought this piece to the 1 billionth degree. I was like, I'm gonna do mixed media. I think that piece is like, it's gouache, it's digital, it's ink, it's marker, it's watercolor. It took me 2 weeks to the absolute millisecond to get that thing in on time, and I screwed it up like 3 times. I was gonna like actually barf, throw up right there, but I got it in, and they were like, "Wow, we're really impressed by this." And so they gave me a couple more pieces, and then I want to say in maybe July, Nick Lowe, if you know him, he's the main senior editor of the Spider-Man books. Like he's like Mr. Spider-Man. He might be executive editor. He's something up there, but he's like the Spider dude. So he reaches out to me and he's like, "Hey, would you be interested in doing a variant for us for Miles?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll do that." I love Miles, and I was so excited about the character. Like I did a little sketch in the theater when I went to go see Spider-Verse, the first one, and that ended up being my first Spider-Man cover. I just redid the sketch, and it was my first variant. He was so impressed. He was like, "Would you like to come on full time as the main series artist?" And that was it. Like Miles Morales, Spider-Man 2020 is the variant. 22 is when I came on full time.
That's wonderful, man.
And
yeah,
it was wild. It was definitely wild. And I sucked. I was awful. Like, I definitely, my first 3 covers make me want to scream when I look at them, but I learned so much.
I remember that because I remember you talking about your process before getting into doing covers, where you were doing like marker comps or like doing them in like pencil and then like grayscale markers and all that. And then you were scanning or then doing your digital washes and stuff like that and going back and forth. And now you're like, what are you, like exclusively Clip Studio? As you found your zone.
Yeah, I can say that. I mean, I do miss the old process, but it was very time consuming, and it didn't leave much room for improvisation within a schedule. You know, I mean, you know this better than anyone. You hit a point where you know that you have to hit deadlines. It's not about how perfect the piece is, it's how competent and solid the piece is and striking and getting that deadline, because you're selling the product. You're not making the Mona Lisa, you're selling the product. So as much as I would love to do, you know, I get back into my watercolors and do all these traditional things, maybe one day, if I get faster at it, I don't know. In the meantime, like, I can crank out these digital pieces pretty quickly now that I have a system. Like, I know what I'm doing. And I think that's also served me very well career-wise. Like, my Flash editor said something really nice. He was like, "I trust you implicitly. I know you'll get it in and it'll be amazing." I love working on the Flash. Like, that's probably my favorite book that I've been on. It's like, you get those images and they're so burned into my memory. Once I get the concept down, I can bust out a cover in like 8 hours if I'm just like sitting down and just focusing. I think my fastest I did was 2 covers in 24 hours.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Flash is double shipping. You gotta get it done. Like, I'm on my last issue now with them. So when I get up with you guys, I'll be right back on that. But it's, you know, you grow in a way that's conducive to what your needs are. So right now, my needs are the business, not so much my personal aesthetic. And that's a tricky thing. I've never had to deal with that. I've only been solo or full-time art for like a year. So this is like, I'm used to having my salary. So keeping up with, you know, bills and these other things depends directly on how much I work or how much I can work or I want to work.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's a mental scarcity thing where I feel like if I stop working, people will forget about me and I'll never be seen again. But I'm like, give it to me, give me it all. I want to do it. And I know I can. And, you know, the more work I'm getting, the more I can make sure that I'm, you know, paying my bills and be able to afford the stupid stuff that I want, like Hot Toys, Spider-Man figures, and garbage that I don't need. You know?
Yeah, man, I'm right here with you.
Yeah, there you go.
That's right.
This is back when I had to have that one.
That's great.
So when
I have a quick question. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Mia.
Oh, no. I was curious because you said the sort of catalyst for you turning to your artwork was your father's passing, but I was curious, were you still in your day job at the time or did you quit and go? Yeah. Oh, you were? Okay.
Oh, yeah. I was still at my day, still very much at my day job. I was living in Philadelphia at the time and I had just moved back that first week. I was staying with some family who sucked and I found out that my dad was like in the hospital. Mm. And it was like the most tumultuous time. It was just, you're dealing with the loss of a parent. You're dealing with a move to there was some other personal stuff that went on that was like wild. But it was literally this avalanche of just emotional battering, just getting punched in the back of the head. And it was like, well, you know what brings me joy? Drawing brings me joy. So, a girlfriend, an ex-girlfriend at the time, had bought me some markers, and I had a sketchbook, and I just drew, and I got better and better, and it just, you know, it was very cathartic to be able to release in that way. It had been so long, it felt like I got a limb reattached or something. It just clicked, and I was like, I will never ever give this up again.
That's so inspiring, because I know a lot of our listeners are in that spot where they have, you know, not drawn for a while maybe, or are scared to jump in full time and stuff, and to hear how you reconnected with it. I mean, I find it super inspiring to hear. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I think another part of it too is, I hear this so much, and I think about it with myself. You're not on anyone's timeline. Like, you're like, so many people are like, oh, I didn't get into Marvel Comics or Marvel Studios or whatever when I was 22. I didn't get into the field that I wanted to. You know, it's too late to become a doctor. It's too late to do. Why is it too late? Because society told you it was too late? Because someone else who was afraid to chase their dreams said it was too late? If you have the drive and you have the energy, and God willing, you have the health, why the fuck not? You know? Again, I'm changing my entire career. My entire life has changed completely, fundamentally, down to the smallest atom in the last 2 years. And I'm happier than I've ever been, because I listened to the advice I had for myself when I was 3 years old. I've known this.
Yeah.
You know, you stick to your guns.
That makes me so happy. You know, my uncle would probably say to you is, by doing something that makes you happy, you've probably added 10 years to your life.
Yes, absolutely.
You know,
I wish I would have recorded myself every morning getting up for this old job. I would be like, fucking hell. And I'd drag myself out of bed, leaving a trail of tears and just despair on the way to go make some other guy a billionaire. It sucked. It really sucked the soul out of me. And now, I mean, I feel like I need boundaries. I don't know how professional artists do this. I get up at weird hours. I go to bed at 5 a.m. I'm like, this is great. I'm never gonna sleep.
I read an article. I read an interview with Alex Ross years ago, where he talked about how he works from 9 to 3 in the morning, and then sleeps, and then
gets
up and answers emails and stuff like that, and then does his that's his schedule. Right.
Not 9 p.m. or 9 a.m.
Yeah, you're home. Who the hell cares?
Right. There's no law. They call HR. I do what I want. You can't stop me. I'm God here. But no. I mean, that's exactly it. But I do also feel because I've had that corporate background, I also understand the business side of it. I want to make sure that my editors know what I'm doing for deadlines. I haven't been late with any of the 3 billion covers I've done. I'm communicating. I was a project manager. I had to juggle things all the time. So there's still that professionalism where I get up and I answer my emails and I do my stuff. I could be better about the emails. I'm sorry to any editors for watching this. I haven't answered an email yet. It's also what's going to make me the most productive. What's going to make me mentally feel like creating. I don't want to drag myself to my desk and be like, it's time to draw. Gotta draw the Batman. I want to feel inspired. You can see the difference between a job that I want to do and one that I don't want to do. And generally, I've been lucky enough to have had jobs that I want to do. I do worry about burning out, but I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
I was just going to bring that up, because we've talked about that a lot, because we've all experienced it at different stages. And I think of, I'm probably going to butcher his last name, but Marco Djurjevic.
Yeah.
He was nonstop for a while, doing one Marvel cover after a while, after another, and then just was screw this.
So someone who had compared me to him and was like, don't end up like that guy. I'm like, what happened to that guy? I really had to ask, I see stuff every now and then, but you were right. He was literally everywhere for 5 years straight.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what he's working on. I hope it's something very cool.
Yeah, he's on. He went off, did found
He's on,
another company. He's doing his own like
he
thing,
should be.
but yeah,
Yeah.
he's
He's
still big.
awesome. Yeah,
Yeah. But I think that whole having that work-life balance, whatever your balance is, where you're scheduling enough time to just relax for a minute.
Yeah, it's important. Like you look at all these companies that are like, we want people back in the office when productivity was already up 70-80% and people working from home. Why do you need them in the office? Not everyone wants to be there. Not everyone has that dynamic. Let people work what's best for them and you'll get more productivity out of it. Like it's simple management, but somehow or another we get caught up in the rigmarole of this is what it should be. You should be in a place doing 9 to 5 because that's just how it's always been. In this artificial system of, you get up when the rooster's up and you go to bed when the cows go to sleep or whatever the fuck. Like I'm a night person. I enjoy the sun, but I don't want to be up at 7 o'clock in the morning just staring at the window like an idiot. Like it doesn't do anything for me. If I get up early, I'm living my childhood dream of eating cereal and watching cartoons, and then I'll work when I'm ready. That's kind of how it goes.
Yeah. My work schedule before kids and family, I would get up around 10 a.m. I would watch like G.I. Joe. Back when it was still on Netflix, I would binge watch like a couple episodes of that or Transformers, pop in some Eggo waffles, and then I would actually start my day at noon, but then I was going until like 2 a.m.
Yeah, that's me right now. Yeah.
So, and I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah, there are times where I love it. There are times where like, okay, I need boundaries. I need to kind of like reel this in a little bit. But no, the reeling it in part is for me, not for anyone else. Like I don't care what they think. I do what I think, and that's the kind of the same thing that you were doing. It's what works for you. I try to make enough time for myself in the day or pace myself where I don't feel overwhelmed. This week was kind of a tough one. I've got 6 covers due next week. I think I've got 2.5 done. They'll be done, but it's just you don't know what schedule is going to look like. Some books double ship, some books like I might get a request for something that has a short deadline because an artist dropped off, or who knows. There are so many moving parts. So I like to keep a little bit of free time in there where I can kind of wiggle stuff around. But ultimately, I don't want to do these things, burn out, and hand in something half-assed.
Yeah. So how soon after you finished the cover is it on stands?
That is one of the great mysteries of the universe. I have no clue. I don't know how any of that works. Comics are so compartmentalized on that side. Like it's weird, especially coming from a job where I had to work with other departments so closely. Like I knew the PMs from other departments. I was working with vendors. I knew what was going on. Here it's like, this is the information you have. This is the information that they have. I feel like the fans know more than I do. I don't know.
But are you even told what issue you're doing?
Yeah.
Okay,
So I don't know what issue. But then it's like, I'll be like, oh man, I can't wait to show people this. And they're like, actually, you can't. This hasn't been approved yet. And you're like, wait, what? So there's like, what is the video game with the giant hand comes and puts you backward and you go off the map?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that.
Okay.
There's definitely some course correction when you do these things.
So like you're talking a couple months, or
it really depends. It's project to project. Like Flash, for example. Flash is doing double shipping, so that's 2 issues coming out a month. And when they announce them, they announce both. So it's usually like a month thing. And then I'll have a project, like if I do, like I've done some stuff for Marvel Studios through Marvel Comics, which is it's a weird, different kind of scenario because you're going through the studios part. They have different rules about what you can speak about and what you can't. So I did a cover for Captain America. It was a Captain America variant that was for the Infinity Saga for Iron Man 2. And it features Iron Man and War Machine flying around over the World's Fair, the Stark Expo and World's Fair, if you remember that movie.
Yeah.
That cover came out like a year and a half after I did it.
Huh.
Like, I couldn't even talk about it. I couldn't say anything about it. It was I don't know why it came out so much later than I've got a few of those floating around where it's like I don't know when they're coming out. I've got like I could probably tell you about 20 covers. Well, I couldn't tell you. I could probably say that there's 20 covers that I have that who knows when I'll see them.
But you got paid. That's at the end of the day.
I did the work. I got paid. I'm excited to see them. It's usually a nice surprise when someone's like, "Oh my God, have you seen this new variant from Taurin Clarke?" And I'm like, "I did that."
Oh, it's out.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that one. Oh, yeah. I heard that.
That's
4
great.
years ago. Halcyon days of 2020.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Track like how do you keep track of your different, like, are you like working on several at the same time, or do you finish one and then move on? So do you have like spreadsheets or something? Like, how do you keep track of so many projects?
Oh my God, I am surprisingly organized in my own chaos. I basically just keep a calendar. This is when my concept is due. This is when the final is due, and I communicate with my editors. When do you need this? What's the latest I can get this to you? Like, if I know I can't reach a certain deadline, I will let them know up front. Like, hey, I can't meet this for March 3rd. Can I get it to you March 6th or March 7th? And that sets the expectation. This is when I'll have it for you. And I make sure that I have it then. But for the most part, it's like you're juggling and then you throw away one ball, but then another one gets tossed into your hands. You're just constantly like, okay, you know, it's a lot, but it's not unmanageable. I would be really embarrassed if I dropped the ball on something and like forgot to do it or something like that.
Can you walk us through? I know you talked a little bit about your work day, like your hours and all that, but can you walk us through your process?
Yeah.
Like you, because I look at your stuff and I'm still trying to like I sit there trying to figure out like because like I think of some of my favorite comic book cover artists, Paulo Rivera, Alex Ross, Travis Charest, like these guys are like just banging it out, but Paulo's using various body parts or his whole self.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. Like Alex Ross is photographing models. Like, what are you doing? How are you getting
a little
these
bit of
characters?
Both. I mean, that Paulo, who I think is one of the greatest cover artists of all time. Definitely a huge influence on me. We chat every now and then. Super nice guy. He kind of set the standard for how to approach reference. Like he does on his blog, he has Wacky Reference Wednesdays, which I love. Like 10 years ago, that was like, wow, okay, so you aren't just stuck coming up with this stuff from like Google or your memory. So I literally will go and gather reference from wherever I can. Like someone had asked me where I got the background for the Ninja Turtles Power Rangers books. I just took a picture of Spring Street on, Soho.
Just went outside.
Yeah, there's a building. I got a camera. Why not? My Power Rangers covers in general. I bought the set of the 6 figures from I think from 3-0. I think is the brand. They're like 1/6 scale, and they've got kind of this glossy helmet. So I take these. There's one right here. I've got these little light rigs, and I set them up to get the lighting that I want. If I can't like picture it from my mind. And for stuff like where I know it's a different material, like the Power Ranger stuff, I set it up so I know that I'm getting that layer of realness to it. But I don't want my work to be photorealistic, so I still stylize accordingly. But it's definitely the heavy lifting is all on the front end. when it comes to finishing the project, I want to do as little improvisation and as little tweaking as possible. So when I hand my concepts in, they're pretty much just like almost like a loose sketch, but they're tighter than, you know, people do the thumbnails and it's just like a bunch of stick figures or whatever. I can't do that. I need to know what I'm getting into. I need to know my palette. I need to have my reference together. I need to do all those things. And so I teach at SVA, as we were talking about earlier, and the class I teach is comic book covers. And what we're going over now is reference and the concept phase. Having a tight concept will save you so much time. Everyone's like, oh, why are you so fast? Because I plan like a lunatic.
I'm so happy you said that whole bit,
Yeah.
because it's like now I have video proof that somebody else is out there doing that, because
Yeah.
I'm constantly telling students, like, get reference. Don't just sit there, you know, making it up and be frustrated
Right.
weeks into something. Like, go out and use the high resolution camera built into your phone, for God's sakes.
Right. You've got the internet, you've got your phone, you've got so many things that we did not have 20, 30 years ago in art school. They didn't exist, you know? And if someone like Norman Rockwell can use reference for a drawing, you can use fucking reference. Like, stop it. It's the whole, I'm a purist. I only use my imagination. Your imagination sucks. If you don't have a photograph Batman, you're drawing nonsense. Go get reference.
Yeah.
And I mean, there are people who can do it, like Kim Jong-gi, rest in peace, one of the greatest. He built his visual library over the span of decades. That takes skill, and you still got to look at shit to do that. Like, it's not, you just don't conjure up what a carburetor looks like. You need to know these things. So I definitely go out and I get my references. And sometimes it's a little fun for me when it's stuff that isn't quite something that I can find in real life. I think that's ultra fun for me. I love that. So I don't know when this is going to come out, but screw it, mild spoilers. The next Flash arc of my last two issues deal heavily with a lot of the Jack Kirby Fourth World stuff, which I love. So drawing this visual vocabulary that doesn't really exist anywhere else, but it's almost like a second language because you know what Jack Kirby stuff looks like, but creating it almost from your mind, but still kind of tethering it to real life stuff. That's fun. You know, what would a planet that had giant pits of fire coming out of it look like? What would a personal harness designed by Jack Kirby look like in a 3D space? Like, those are the kind of things that I like to tweak. Like, if you have reference, you can tweak it to make sense. If your imagination is powerful enough, you can create stuff on the fly. I'm kind of a mix of both, so I do what the job needs me to do. But also, I'm working on another super secret book that I can't tell you about. But I know that there's going to be very specific parts of the character that I'm doing. I'm not going to want to draw every month like this. So I have a buddy who works for Marvel Studios who I commissioned him to do 3D models of it, 3D sculpts. And so I'll give him, a couple $100 to do these things. So I have a visual reference. So I can go, okay, I can turn this like this, or I can flip this like this, and this is what these grooves would look like on the side of this material, or this is what this would look like. Like, I had that Gold Goblin comic, and I absolutely had to have a 3D version of that glider because it's from a zillion different angles. It's annoying to draw, and anything that can help you shave time off of the end result is always a plus. Work smart, not hard. I'm king lazy. I'm not interested in sweating. I hate it.
Yeah,
I liked it.
I watch videos on YouTube sometimes, and like I'm sure some of your students, some of my students, they watch that stuff, and that's how they learn how to digitally paint. And it's basically like watching somebody go, hey guys, welcome to my channel. This is what I'm going to show you today. And that you watch them literally fall downhill and then like figure it out halfway with a flipping and rotating and like making it up on the fly, and then they go back uphill and they go, and that's how it's done. You
Right.
know, oh my God, that was a train wreck.
Right,
Like,
right.
like there was no plan.
And that's some people do that and they're good at it. Like I don't want to say I envy them, but it's something that impresses me. Like when you can do that stuff and just be like, bam, look at this thing that I did. I had no plan whatsoever. I don't need, I'm flying out of the trapeze. The trapeze. I don't need a net. If I fall, I'll just break all my bones. I don't care. Like that's absolutely not me. At all. Like, I want 2 nets. I want a parachute. I need to go in as planned as possible.
Yeah, bungee cord, everything.
Yeah. I'm not about that. But also, I think a lot of these kids, and this is funny because I had to catch myself the other day with my students because we were talking about how we all we're talking about getting on social media 2008 2011. These kids grew up with that. Like they grew up with these tutorials from these artists doing, look at this, bling blah bling, smash that like and subscribe button, bro. And that's just the culture of it. It's this instant gratification. If I can't do it like this, then it's wrong. But that's not how it works. Like, everyone's perspective is valid. Everyone's perspective is different. Find what works best for you, but also find what's successful. You can be fast and be wrong. You can work off intuition and it could be completely incorrect, or it could be correct. You have to find your own way. You can't base these things on your own, off of other people's experience. It's just not how it works,
Yeah. I want to segue. I want to ask you about comics. Did you have a favorite comic book artist or series that you followed as a kid?
So many. That's the most loaded question of all time. It really depends on the era. Like, I can think of so many comic books that I truly, truly, truly loved. Like, obviously Claremont's X-Men. Trying to explain to people that the Avengers were a clown team back when I was a kid. Like, the Avengers are the cops. No one's reading the Avengers. They're a bunch of nerds. You go to there, people beating them up in front of their house all the time. Yeah, no one cared about the Avengers. It was like, the X-Men were these gritty kind of on the run kind of characters. I started around issue 127, 129. It's the last issue of the Proteus saga, right before the Dark Phoenix saga starts. My dad had all the old issues. He gave them to me in '84 after he saw that I liked Fantastic Four. So from that first issue, Chris Claremont does this really interesting thing with characterization. It's the tail end of the book of the story arc, but you automatically within 3 pages know who every character is, what their motivations are, what their interpersonal connections are to their other teammates. Like Jean loves Scott. Wolverine's the toughest nails guy, but he's got a heart of gold. Clarke is the strong guy, but he also is, he's a gentle soul. And you kind of immediately see who these people are. And I remember being so enamored with not just the art, but like the heart in it. And that kind of like set the tone. So I stuck with X-Men for, I think, 126 to about 320 something. I remember very much when I got out of comics. Like I would say like the 90s where everyone was like, oh, it kind of became like this, and this is not a bash to manga or anime, but when it became like overly cartoonized, it kind of lost the glamour for me. So I kind of backed away. I was looking for more illustrative stuff and I couldn't find the kind of artists that I liked anymore. So I would say the last artists of that era before I got back into comics later was Travis Charest, who followed me on Twitter, and I almost threw up. I was like, what? Because there's maybe a handful of artists that I actively went out and was like, I want to emulate this person. I will gladly be the clone of this artist. And boy, did I fail. if there was no other lesson to teach me, you ain't that dude. You are not that tough than trying to draw Travis Charest in 1997, 98. I was like, oh well, I figure something else out. I guess this ain't gonna work.
Back in the 90s, being a clone of somebody was like that could get you work quick.
Yeah. And again, I went to a art school where they cranked out comic book artists. Dennis Cohen went there. Oh my God, my brain's going bad. John Romita Sr. went there. Joe Mad, Neil Adams, like everywhere. Alex Toth, like so many people went to that school that they were known for like churning out these artists. Sway, Josh Swaby, I don't know if you know Sway.
Yeah,
he went there. Like there's so many of us that came out of that school.
Wait, to SVA?
No, he went to SVA too.
Yeah, Sway went to SVA.
But he went to high school art design.
Oh yeah, of course. High school art design is there's that, and there's a high school of performing arts, which is what the TV show or the movie Fame was based off of.
My brother went there,
yeah. But so your high school churned out a ton of not just comic book artists, but illustrators just in general, romance cover artists, young and middle grade. Yeah, like if you wanted to do it, your art teacher was like that school was amazing from what I heard.
I mean, by the time we got there, it was a little different, but I still got a lot out of it. And it was more the idea that, okay, these people, I shared this, I walked these halls where these other dudes did. And that kind of like put things in perspective a bit too. College, I didn't get that. So I leaned more towards looking for that art in what I was reading. And comic books just weren't doing that anymore. So I got into poster art and more illustrative like cover stuff. Like that's when I really leaned into my Bob Peaks and my Bruce Struzan from the old Star Wars novels. I used to buy those, not just to read them. I would like stare at the covers. Then that kind of led me into like Robert McGinnis and like more illustrative guys. And then the Art Nouveau stuff kind of fell into my world. Like there were so many other things going on that weren't comics. So comics were like, all right, well, the stories aren't that great and the art's not what I want. So I feel like I can leave this behind. I got back into comics in like 2000. And then I think most of the ones that I love are still behind me. I think these are all the ones that I bought back in like the 2000s. So it's like Louis LaRosa, who I love to death on Punisher, Ed McGuinness and Jeff Loeb when they did Superman Batman the first time around. Mark Waid on The Flash. You cannot go wrong with that. Mark Waid and Mike Wieringo. That's one of the best comic book runs of all time. There were, I mean, Grant Morrison and Frank Whiteley on X-Men. There were just so many books. John Paul Leon, the Universe X. I think about this one page that he did where the Celestials come down to New York City, and this was like, I want to say this was post 9/11. So seeing this page with like the abject horror of these beings that are stories above the Empire State Building was just one of those images that just burned into my mind. It really lit that fire. I'm like, man, I gotta start drawing again. This, god damn, what is this? Like I would say from 96, maybe like 97, 98 to 2000, I couldn't give a crap about comics. 2000 to maybe 2003 was such a renaissance of artists that I still love to this day, who came in with such different and dynamic styles. I just was so inspired. To be able to even talk to some of these guys today is absurd, but it's like, I love that stuff.
Yeah. No, I think about when you just mentioned Art Nouveau, I was thinking about instantly, I thought about Joe Quesada. And like
one of the great, talk about Joe, he's criminally underrated. He's so good. like editor in chief, yeah, sure, all right, whatever. But
Yeah.
the stuff he was doing in like 95, 96, he was light years above
Yeah.
everybody else in that era.
Yeah.
I will. That is a hill that I will die on.
When I first saw his stuff on the Ray for DC, and then he was doing, I want to say X Factor, not X Factor. Was he on X Factor?
He took over for Larry Goldman. I also loved,
Then he was doing Ash. He did like self-published.
Self-published. Jimmy Palmiotti,
yeah, and then was doing Ninjak for, what was that? Was that for Dark Horse?
That was for Valiant.
Valiant.
I had the poster on my wall. Yeah,
man, and that was like, because I was like, is that some Muka?
Right. Yeah. It's got that vibe to it.
My God, man. So yeah.
But that's just something that grabbed me. It was like the Muka influence on guys who I adore, like Adam Hughes. I love his work. I think him and Ryan Sook are probably my two current faves for cover work. Like, I just, anything that they're doing, I'm just watching. But like you could see the influence of these other styles of things, and it just clicked. You know, like comic book art doesn't have to be comic booky. Like you can do so much more. I think my personal approach is to have an elevated kind of illustrative quality to it. I still want it to be fun. You know, like I'm definitely not a fine artist. I would not consider myself anything in that realm. Even my personal work, like I've never been that kind of guy. I've always been very interested in illustration. I'm lowbrow. I like a pretty picture. So seeing these artists kind of do that stuff, where it was a good mix of what made comics exciting versus actual art, was just so inspiring to me.
So I know that some cover artists, make the leap to interiors at some point. Is that something that if you got the call by a publisher to do something like that, and they gave you the choice of any character, like, would you take on that job? Would you take on that extra work? And like, what character would you?
It would have to be something real special. I've been toying with it over the last few months, years maybe. A friend of mine who interviewed me for a podcast not too long ago was basically like, you said, my friend Jasmine over at Marvel's Pull List, she was like, 2 years ago we interviewed you. You said hell no. Now you're like, well, maybe, because it is a maybe. It is a maybe. I think I wouldn't mind doing like an anthology, like something like 7 or 8 pages where I can just kind of flex. I don't consider myself a sequential artist like that. And I personally think it is such a high skill to have to be done well. I think of like the Esad Ribics and Frank Whiteley. Like, I don't care what book it is, you put Frank Whiteley on it, and there could be one panel that I would see every, like if I saw one panel a week, I would still be able to read the story, like, with no problem. Like, there's such a visual language, and the choices that some of these guys make are just like, I would have never thought to do that. And I love that about this bunch of stuff. I don't know that I'm that person. I'm sure it's a muscle that you need to flex to be able to grow. So I won't say no to it, but it would really have to be something big.
Yeah. We had like, listening to you talk, it's like we had so many similar experiences. Like I told you, like just texting you sometimes, like we would have been homies back in high school.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Absolutely.
When I was 15, I went to a Comic-Con in Philadelphia. I think it was PhilCon, something like that. But McFarlane was there, and Casada was there, like Larry Stroman was there, like all these, like, oh my God. And like any celebrity could have, any like random celebrity would have walked past me, I wouldn't have gave a damn. But
Right.
seeing Todd McFarlane in
Right.
person, I was like, Ma, look, like,
Yeah.
oh my, look. And Jim Shooter was there, and Jim Shooter was given basically like a master class in how to do narrative storytelling, like sequential art.
That's amazing.
And I like took notes in this class, like 15 years old, like here's what you have to do step by step.
For sure. That's someone to listen to.
Oh
He was
God.
doing that stuff at 15 years old.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
he like broke into comics at like what, 13, 14? He was like, yeah, I'm an adult. You can let me write your comic. They were like, this guy sounds legit. Let's let him write his comics. 2 weeks later, he's like editor-in-chief. Yeah, no, that's the guy I listen to. No, that's awesome. But it's such a, I wish that there were more specialized programs like, you know, in art school for that stuff. Now that there were back then. Like, I wish that I could have taken a class like that when I was a kid. Like, I would have loved to. But, you know, I was too busy learning typography with my, you know, cardboard cutouts.
had you heard of the Joe Cooper school?
Yeah. I mean, I figured that out way too late, but it was also in Jersey, and I was like, I'm not going to Jersey. But a lot of my friends who went there, or a few who teach there, I mean, those guys are all heavy hitters. So, you know, and Andy Kubert, I believe, is on DC's board of. This is like a. I don't know if this is information I can share, but I guess it is. There's a committee of artists who review concepts and covers, I think. And Andy is on that. He's on that committee for me on the Flash. So every now and then he'll give like some tweaks for a cover that I should do or something like that. They're always like really good advice. These are it's constantly a learning process with this stuff. So you know, those guys are, you know, legends. So of course, if they say something, I'm like, okay, this sounds good. And I look at it and like, oh wait, that was actually an excellent idea, not just a good idea. So it's that school definitely cranked out some of my all-time faves. I think Alex Maleev went there, if I recall.
Alex who?
Maleev, he was with oh my God, my brain. He was on Daredevil with Brian Michael Bendis in the 2000s, which was another book that like really made me want to draw again. Maleev he was on Batman for a while. He's definitely top 3 Daredevil artists for me.
Wow, right.
He was on there for like 2-3 years, I remember.
John Romita Jr. I think I only collected Daredevil. Yeah. I only collected that Daredevil. Daredevil and Punisher leaped out at me when I saw John Romita Jr.'s work.
Top 5 sequential artists of all time. Hands down. I will fist fight everyone's mother in the middle of Times Square. I do not care. I love that guy's work. He followed me on Instagram. I lost my mind. But like, I think about his work, his Daredevil work specifically. He was inked by Al Williamson on this one issue of Daredevil. It takes place 1989. It's one of the crossover for Acts of Vengeance, and it's Daredevil versus Ultron. And there's a splash page where it's Dr. Doom in this room full of technology, and it's the most complex, insane thing that I had seen at like 9 years old. How are these guys doing this every month? Like, John Romita Jr. stuff on his own is pretty strong, but with Williamson inking, it was like, what the hell? Who did this? You know, it was just brilliant. But now you got like my buddy Mark Morales, who I think is the greatest living inker. He's so good. He makes John Romita Jr. sing too, but it's John Romita Jr. is just insanely good. Hasn't missed a step. It's been what, 40, 50 years of him drawing?
Yeah, it's wild stuff. So I just want to ask you about SVA. So you were studying there like, who were you studying?
Non-matriculated.
Was this like continuing ed, like at night or something?
Yeah, they were non-matriculated classes, just things I wanted to
Okay.
brush up on. So I took
Mhm.
a class with my buddy Nelson, who no, Nelson has worked on comics for I don't know Nelson DeCastro. He's worked on uh, so many Marvel books. I can't even think of any of them right now, but he was one of the first guys I ever saw paint a comic cover. He did a book for Dark Horse called is it RoboCop Prime Suspect with John Paul Leon as the interior artist. And I'm sure he'd be embarrassed. Both of them would be embarrassed if they saw this book now. But at the time, it was cool as hell. Like you can kind of see the JPL building blocks. But Nelson was like doing these beautiful airbrushed, like painted things. He's kind of like in the vein of a Joe Jusko, like classical artist.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
But he was teaching like a boot camp for anatomy to like, get you back into the groove. And I took that. It was like, okay, I feel like I can draw again. I mean, it was basic. It was just like form and that sort of a thing.
Yeah.
But it was really good. And I took another class with this guy, Matt Rhoda, who is an amazing, amazing illustrator. I don't know. I think he still teaches at SBA. I don't know if he still teaches this class. But the class was digital color for the traditional illustrator, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So he really taught how to use Photoshop for people who wanted to color their traditional work digitally. And he had an amazing course, and it really, really helped me with what you see now, because I was not a digital artist at all at that time.
So that gave you the foundation and the confidence you needed to just go back out there and be ready.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't come out like, yeah, great, but I definitely felt like those guys taught me so much about what I needed to work on top of building new skills that it really helped kickstart the old engine. So I definitely would not be where I am without those two of those classes.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So then, I mean, that just leads you right into now teaching at SVA.
Yeah,
Like that's got to be a mind trip.
that is, yeah, it's insane.
So when did you start? When did that start?
So I was approached by Thomas Wood. I'm getting way ahead of myself. So the comic thing takes off. I'm doing all these drawings, yada yada yada. I am following artist Yuko Shimizu, who is one of my all-time favorite artists. If you don't know her work, please look up her work. She's one of the greatest illustrators of all time. Brilliant, but also one of the kindest. Just I don't know where I would be without her mentorship and friendship. She's just amazing. We ended up, I think she had posted a comment about ageism and just the whole trope of you're too old to do X, Y, and Z. And I commented on her post on Instagram like, hey, this is what I need to hear because I'm just breaking into comics now at 40 years old. And she was like, oh my God, I broke into illustration at 50 or however old she was. I hope I'm not like aging her. But she was like, she broke into her field much later in life too. She was also corporate schlub who wanted to do creative things. And so we ended up talking and we did an interview like this over Instagram Live. And it went really well. We had a great conversation, just talked about our experiences and the idea that you're never too old to do this stuff. I mean, she started quote unquote later in life and is internationally known, quadrillion different awards for her work. Like I can't think of someone who has a more unique visual voice than Yuko. And we ended up becoming, friends, chatting every now and then. And apparently she tossed my hat into the old chair of SVA, this guy, Thomas Woodruff. And Thomas was like, would you be interested in teaching? And I was like, I'm borderline illiterate. What are you talking about? And, he kind of was like, it seems like you would have something to bring to the table, like the conversation we had earlier. It's about the perspective. So with COVID going around, it was kind of like, maybe this isn't the greatest thing. But he was like, well, keep us in mind, it's an open offer. So I did the paperwork and everything, and we kind of left it at that. But we ended up coming back to it. Victor Cohen is the new head, and he was like, would you still be interested? So I went in last September and I taught my first class. I'm teaching my second semester ever. My parents are both teachers, so it's weird to be in this space because I never thought that I would do such a thing. But I really like teaching. I like my students. I like their perspective on stuff. It's interesting to see the generational differences, and hopefully they walk away from it with something. I tell them constantly that my job isn't to grade you or give you busy work. I want you to literally look at your work critically and with the self-awareness to figure out what you need to be successful. And that's all that I want for any artist. I want you to be the best you that you can be, So it's nice to be able to instill those things that I never got as an art student. I didn't have anyone telling me to do X, Y, and Z. Well, that's not true. I had one good art teacher, Robert Frank. Wherever you are, thank you so much. The rest of them, I'll be nice. I won't say the things that I would do on their grave with shoes. But no. I think of how many instructors I had who just went to a job, and I get it. You don't want to be there. You're not. This isn't the passion of your life, but you're also. It's a detriment to someone else's life.
Yeah.
If you're not happy, that's fine. But you're allowed to not be happy. But when you walk into a classroom and there are people looking at you like, I need you to guide me, and you're like, I don't want to be here. Do whatever you want. I'm going to read my newspaper. What's the point of that?
Yeah. There's plenty of other jobs you can do that, not teaching that.
Seriously.
Yeah. But I'm so glad you. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to reiterate what you were teaching your students. I wish I had that in school because it took me so long to learn that self-awareness and to be self-critical of your own work and your own education of what you need for what you want to do is so vital. And it's like, there's usually teachers that want to mold you into what they want or what they do. And that's brilliant that you don't do that.
Right. I mean, it's funny talking to them. Like, so the course I teach is comic book covers, right? I am here to specifically teach you the art of the comic book cover, what makes it work, what doesn't make it work. And I'm coming in as someone who's only been doing this for 2 years, so it's kind of like, all right, I'm learning as I go too, kids. Like, sorry.
2 years plus decades of having looked at comic book covers and absorbed that for your entire life.
Yeah.
Right. There is that passive information being absorbed, but it's still a learning process for me too. But it's also the generational differences between me and my students are so hilarious because when we were kids, you go to you had friends who read comic books, and you can get comic books everywhere. You go to a newsstand, go to the corner store, go wherever, the spinner rack gets your My Little Pony, your X-Men, your Alf comics, whatever you want. It's all there. Now it's like, where do you buy comics? And all these kids read is manga. I think I maybe had 3 kids in the 2 classes that I've had who read comic books. So there are very fundamental differences between manga book covers and comic book covers, and that's kind of what I'm trying to teach them. And it's not to say that manga is wrong. It's they're selling a different kind of product than American Western comics. Mm-hmm. There's this one trope that kind of kills me is the manga hero on the cover doing absolutely nothing. They're just like, and the kids are like, oh my God, this is my favorite cover ever. The person's not doing anything. If I'm coming in with no knowledge of this character, all I see is a white background and a person doing it with thumbs up. Why would I buy this book? There's no reason for me to buy this book. So it's trying to get you to think critically, like, what are the story elements outside of, I like this person's hair, to make me want to buy this thing? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the fun part, because I do want them to still work in their aesthetic, do their thing, but think of it critically. Like, there are definitely other manga books that aren't like that. Like I look at like my old Akira and my Lone Wolf and Cubs, and the very few manga that I have, where there was a narrative on the cover. There was still something to draw you in, even if it was just a really well done illustration. It was still something. You can't, every cover can't be white background guy with thumbs up. So it's getting them to think critically about that stuff.
And all that stuff kind of looks the same, not to like bash manga right now. I don't want to turn into that, but it all looks kind of the same. And some of the students that I've had, they all want to copy their favorite manga artist, and they want to be that. I'm like, well, that person is still alive. And why would they hire you if they could just call that person? Like,
but to that same point, didn't we do that? Didn't we want to be Jim Lee and Travis Charest?
Oh my God, yes. But then I tell them, like, you use that as a stepping stone to like learn how to draw.
But this is where we teach them. This is the teachable moment. This is their stepping stone. Mm-hmm. So as much as I want to throw their books in the furnace and be like, read this, like I'm not going to, because that's my perspective. I'm a grumpy old person and I don't like it, but it's not for me to like. This is their life. If they suggest something for me to read, I'll read it and I'll give them my honest feedback, because it's interesting. Like, I want to know more about this stuff. I want to have a worldly view of their interests, because it helps inform mine. Having these discussions with them as to why they think these covers are effective, and me being like, I see your point, but also no, it's better than me just being like, stop drawing like this. Like I want to give them a reason why. And eventually some of them will figure it out, some of them won't. And I think this is the tough part about art school. You guys both know this. It's incredibly competitive. Like, their level of dedication and self-awareness is what's going to push them either out in front of the group or push them back into obscurity. So you can't teach someone to do that. You can't tell someone to do that, because they're going to fight you. If you told me that I couldn't draw like Art Adams when I was 12 years old, I would have punched you in the nose. I would have punched you in the nose and pushed you down a flight of stairs, and that would have been it. But at this point of my life, I am the sum of all of those artists that I loved and absorbed. I still do a Mike Mignola pose for like characters. I wear all my influences on my sleeve. If you look at my work, you can see all the artists I like, and I am unabashedly not ashamed of it. Like I wear it, but I also understand that those influences aren't singular. I'm not copying anybody. I have some of these experiences, and these guys are young. They're literally like were fetuses like 2 decades ago, barely that. So you kind of have to give them the benefit of the doubt. Like, when I was 20, I sucked at just about everything. So I kind of just go, all right, kid, you'll figure it out, or you won't. But let me help you try to get that perspective.
Awesome.
Yeah. I've been showing students work of Masamune Shiro and Katsuro Otomo.
Yeah, those are my influences. Yeah,
and saying, okay, well, look, this is what manga used to look like. I don't know what y'all looking at now,
nonsense,
but like,
yeah. I mean, they're, and I won't say nonsense. That's a broad stroke. That's our parents did with comic books. Like, what is this?
Yeah, back in my day, yeah, we become those people.
You get to a certain age, you start to become those people. But it's the same thing with like, people drawing Dragon Ball Z. Like, how many artists have you met in your entire life who drew Dragon Ball Z, but I can't remember the actual artist name who does Dragon Ball.
I don't remember.
I have his book here. I love his work, but I can't remember his name. But it's like they'll copy the TV show, but not look at the illustrator's actual work. Mm-hmm. So if you can just get them to think in that like vein, like, okay, so maybe you like One Piece for whatever reason. You follow the artist into his other works. Maybe this artist, his influence was this person. Maybe this was this. It becomes a deep dive.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like, that's how I found so many other classical artists, because I liked what my artists. I know more, like I think about like music. Like I know more about music than I do comics.
Mhm.
And I remember being a kid, and my dad was used to DJ, and so he would bring home like rap records, but then he would play me the original. So it'd be like um Nas, The World Is Yours or something, and then he would play me Ahmad Jamal, The Awakening, it's a jazz record. And so I got to learning what piano sounded like what a piano trio sounded like. And that led me to other artists, and that led me to other things. So if you have the passion, you want to learn more, that's kind of what I want from my students. I want them to take their influences and their love and follow it to the next location and go dig deeper down till they find the root and kind of grow from there.
Yeah. And that way they're making the choices like intentionally instead of just out of, adoration for the things they like.
Yes.
There's a difference between trying to do the things you like and the things that you really are and what your voice is, and I think that's really hard to grasp at that age, because I certainly didn't understand that for years until after art school.
Yeah. Like you definitely in art school, you do not grasp these things, because I also think your brain's not fully developed. So it's like, you're set in your own way. So it takes life experience to be able to step back away from your work and go, what is this lacking? Why don't I have this feeling about this? Like, I still look at my work like that. Like there's still what I want in my head.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I had a better idea of what I wanted when I was younger. And I think that was informed by an immature way of looking at my own work. I shouldn't have an idea of what I want my work to be. I should just let my work grow as it grows. Mm-hmm. I think that's kind of where I'm at now. Like, I do worry, because I'm doing more work for publishers and not for myself, that I'm evolving a certain way as opposed to what I expected. But I still have this aesthetic that's kind of like growing. And I look at my own work sometimes from my old stuff, and I'm like, wow, I really have grown even in the last 2 years. My first 2 Spider-Man covers are horrible. I literally hate them so much. Sorry, guys. But the last 2 that I did are probably 2 of my favorites, and who knows, 2 years from now, maybe I'll look back at those 2 favorites and be like, oh my God, I can't believe I drew something so cringe. That's just the nature of it. You grow and your influences change and your views evolve with you.
Yeah. There's been a couple of illustrator, like comic book cover artists that were like, when James Jean hit the scene,
man,
all of a sudden there's this James Jean wake that like affected a bunch of other people. But then I think about going back, this goes back a while ago, but Jim Lee had a very consistent look to his work, from X-Men through Wildcats, and then Deathblow came along, and you're like, whoa, like that's different. It's still him, but it's mixed in with a little bit more of that Frank Miller.
Yep.
Right? So, I mean, I don't know if you'll have that moment where you try to experiment, or if they'll let you experiment.
Someone, I don't remember the artist, they famously said, experiment when you're young. When you're older, you have deadlines. So I don't know. I who's an artist who I adore, who does this very well, and I am constantly impressed by his ability to kind of switch weapons. Mike Choi. Do you know Mike Choi?
Yeah.
Mike Choi's line work is fucking sublime. He's just brilliant. But he's been doing these paintings, and I love them, and I want him to do more stuff like that. I want to see more artists have their Mike Choi arc. I want to see them do these experimental paintings and do what they love, and still have it fall in the vein of what feeds the family. Like that's such an interesting way to go about it. And I look at the guys who've done like comic stuff and do more gallery art or more painting, like William Ray, who I also love. Watching and looking at his paintings now and remembering he did an Akira spoof back in like 1989, on top of like the Ren and Stimpy stuff you were doing. Like, there's you just after a certain amount of time in your career, if you've been doing this for long enough, you should be weird. You should be doing stuff that your teenage you wouldn't even know what to process. I know for a fact, 12-year-old me would hate what I'm doing now. He would hate it. He wouldn't like it, and I love that because I'm not 12-year-old me. I shouldn't have that like look at my art and go, wow, I'm 10 years old again, and this is as good as I've got. Like that's not how it should work. At least, and that's how I feel about it.
I imagine.
Okay.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go.
No, I was just gonna ask. Like, I imagine you don't have much time for personal work, and if you do, like in terms of downtime, do you feel burnt out from doing art? Like to try experiments on the side, or to sort of play in the sandbox?
I literally don't have the time. You're right. I suppose I could make more time. I do play a lot of video games.
I just need no to one more job. Like
I have time.
Oh no, what have we done?
What's your game? What's pulling you away from the easel?
Oh man. I've been playing a lot of Destiny as of late. That's been fun. It's funny. I was thinking about this the other day. I have a zillion different consoles, and I play video games, but I mostly just putz around and don't actually do anything. Like it's like the ADHD kicks in, and I'm like, oh, what if I start 13 seconds of every game, go to the store and see if there's any more games to buy, figure I don't want any, and then go to bed, and then it's like 4 a.m. and I go, oh, okay, cool.
I don't know, man, because I see you online always raving about that Guardians of the Galaxy game, and
it was really good. That was like that and the Cyberpunk 2077 were the last two games I actually sat down and beat the living hell out of.
Mm-hmm.
I
gotta watch it. I gotta play it. I mean, I downloaded that game specifically because you was raving about it, and I thought, all right, let me
so
try
good.
this out.
It's so good. It's if you can get a narrative one-player game to get me to sit down and actually play it and nonstop, that's an achievement in and of itself. I haven't even beat God of War. I started was like whatever. Like I lose interest so quickly in things. So if I'm not working, I'm like juggling a bunch of other stuff. But no, Guardians was really good. I really liked Cyberpunk 2077. The last Ninja Turtles beat 'em up game I liked. I'm playing a lot of weird indie games. I like there's like a Tunic, I think is the name of it. It's like almost like a Zelda clone. It's like a cute little fox guy, kind of a little roguelite. I think I tend to like things that are a little bit more visually stimulating. You know, I don't, and this is the same with my comics. Like I got enough grim and gritty in the real world. You know, I'm constantly glued to news sources that are making me depressed, and you know, all the stuff of the world. You know, if you follow me on Instagram, you guys follow me, so you know, I'm plugged into everything. So when I want my escapism, I want pure escapism. I want candy cane forests and like elf friends. Give me as far away from reality as possible. You know, so there are very few games that are giving me that kind of vibe, but you know, I enjoy a good co-op game, a good single player story also works for me.
My 3-year-old plays a game called Astro's Playroom.
Yes. It's really good.
Yeah, and he's practically beaten it. So
yeah,
you know, like I put the PlayStation controller in his hand and basically said this is what this button does, and then after maybe like a couple weeks, he's like, all right, like pulling combos and whatnot. I'm like, oh my god. But
that's a good game.
That's great.
I really like that game. Yeah.
It's pure. That's what I'm saying. Like it's pure escapism. There's nothing violent. I can just leave him be and then know that he's not going to be traumatized by
right.
You know, something.
I'm probably going to play after this and traumatize myself, but I prefer something like a Super Mario Brothers where I can just jump on a mushroom and call it a day.
Done. But no, I mean, if that's your release, if that's what helps to prevent that burnout, then great, because we don't always have to be constantly working or experimenting or doing something. I mean, just like I was telling Mia earlier, like I haven't done anything this month other than teach. I haven't done. It's felt weird, but I know I've got projects scheduled that are coming, so I'm just enjoying this quiet time.
Enjoy it while it lasts.
Enjoy it while it lasts.
Yeah.
Like, let me go see Avatar while I have a chance.
Yeah.
Right.
It's so funny. That's such a new thing to me, but it's so true. It's like I panic when I don't have anything to do, and it's like you should take advantage of this. Like you should be like chilling and actually like relaxing.
Yeah.
I went from oh my god, I'm never gonna work again last month because two of my books ended. I just finished up Silver Surfer Ghostlight, which will be out Wednesday. I'm super excited about. John Jennings is writing. Valentine DeAndro is doing the interiors. Awesome. It's gonna be great. That ended, and Gold Goblin ended, and I was like, okay, so that's 2 books, and Power Rangers ended. So it was like, okay, so that's 3 of my monthly books that are done. And I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna starve. I'm gonna die. And so it was quiet for like 2 weeks. It was like the Christmas vacation. So I'm like, oh god,
you realize
what's happening? Oh, Jesus, so please help me. And then like the first week of January, I had 6 covers due that week. So it was like,
oh my god.
Then I've been kind of just steady and sane since then. So it's like, okay, I need to have more of those down times where I can like build them up and then kind of like coast for a little bit.
No, I mean, I think about like how long are those runs on comic books? Like you could just, if you're just like the regular cover artist, or is how do I ask this? Like how many variants are there? Like I know you do variant covers, but is there like more than one?
Yeah. Like I don't quite understand the variant market, but usually there'll be like 5 or 6 per issue, depending on what the issue is.
Okay.
So for like my main covers, which I've done main series covers for Miles, The Flash, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, for Boom, which I'm still on, which I love very much. Gold Goblin and Silver Surfer for Marvel. Icon and Rocket for Milestone. And then I've done like variant cover runs for like Power Rangers Ninja Turtles.
Mm-hmm.
That was a variant. But most of my work, I would say, is variants. Because I'm doing like, I'll get like an editor will know my work and be like, hey, can you do this, that, and the third? And I'm like, if it's cool, yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And if I have the time, I'll knock it out. One of my editors hit me up last year, and we did like 2 variants every month for like the entire year. And I think that was kind of like what you guys were seeing. We're like, wow, Taurin is everywhere. And it was because we kind of had this plan to do all of these covers. So I was on Miles and still had these other covers coming in like constantly. So now this is my first, well, I guess that was my first year doing art, doing comics, and not having a day job. But I also had those other comics to kind of keep me going. So this is a little different. So right now I'm the main cover artist on Power Rangers. Flash is ending. DC's doing this whole Dawn of DC thing. So I am finishing up with issue 799, and Jeremy, who is our writer, is going to Green Lantern, which will be awesome. Jeremy Adams, he's amazing. If you've seen the Super Sons movie, he wrote that. He's great. And the Flash run right now is one of the best comics I've ever read. So it's like, it's hard to say goodbye to that book because it is so damn good. That's like everyone's top 10 comics of 2022. But so that's ending. But so right now I'm on Power Rangers and a secret book that I can't announce yet, but it's when I do, you'll know why I couldn't, and it'll be
Yeah.
big. So we'll see what else is coming down the pipeline, but it's a lot of right now. It's a lot of variants. I think I've done like
Hey man, what
15 or 16.
variant or main, it's work, and it's wild, and I'm so happy for you.
I appreciate it.
That's
It's
so cool.
Again, when we met, I was like, oh, it must be cool to be an artist, man. You just so cool. Oh, I wish I could do it. I want to it within 5 months, like my life changed completely. I could not imagine doing anything else.
Yeah. And I think that's where I want to wrap it
Cool.
here today, because just the idea of following your dreams, doing what you're passionate about, it's something we talk about a lot. Not being ashamed of having that day job.
Yeah.
Doing what you have to do to survive until things change. But knowing that if you keep going, if you keep trying, one day that you might get that phone call or that email. Will you be ready when that day comes?
That's exactly it. I tell my students this. Opportunity knocked and my bags were already packed. It wasn't. I didn't have to second guess. I didn't have to think about the next steps. I just left and it worked. And when I left my day job, the next day or next week, I was doing a documentary for Marvel. So it was like, oh, this was absolutely the right choice.
Yeah.
And I didn't have enough sick days to be able to do this movie that I was in for a hot second. So it just kind of reinforced I'm on the right path. The underlying message is, if you want it, stick with it. Be realistic about your goals, but don't give up on them.
That's beautiful. Listen, I don't have an outro like how our co-host Lauren usually does, but I'm going to leave it just like what you just said there. And I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Mia, do you have anything?
I just want to say thank you, Taurin, for this. I mean, I'm so inspired, and just, you're amazing. You've earned every single bit of your career, and it's just been so inspiring to listen about it.
Don't make me cry, I swear to God.
Oh man, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. This was great.